Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Beef Up Front here on Pick Swap Media. Ryan Coyle and Joe Kmetz. Joe, hard to believe, but it is the final four of the college football season. And four teams, definitely at the beginning of the season. I would love to see what the lottery ticket looked like if you had these four teams parlay to make the final four this year in college football. That would be pretty crazy. We got Miami versus Ole Miss. Miami coming into the year, a lot of people had them as like a 10-2 type of squad. I was definitely down on them, and they've made me eat my words. And here they are in the Final Four, and maybe I have a chance to win it all here. Ole Miss, no one had them making it. I think a lot of people had them in that 9-3 to 7-5 mix. Number 5, Oregon. A lot of people probably had them in the mix. Probably like 11-1, 10-2 team. And Indiana, I think everyone expected to take a pretty big step back after their historic year last year, and they just continue to roll on. So, storyline or a Final Four here, Joe, that is not short on storylines at all. Plenty of kind of topics, side topics to discuss to go along with the football itself. And we talked about it going into the last show, Joe. Like, I thought all those games were going to be awesome. The Oregon-Texas Tech game obviously didn't deliver. Indiana, Alabama, say what you want about it. Indiana destroyed Alabama on national TV. It was the most watched, I think, college football playoff game ever. I think it said, for besides a championship. The Miami-Ohio State game, I had a lot of fun watching that. That was a really fun kind of physical back-and-forth game. And then the nightcap to end it, Georgia versus Ole Miss, was one of the best games I think we've seen all season. So take what you want about the final the Elite Eight, but we're down to the Final Four. Two really good matchups. I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, and I think this is a Final Four. Cool. You were kind of saying it like, no one expected it, but the sport kind of needed this. Because it feels, every single year, and the one knock on college football, whether it was the BCS, whether it was the four team, was always, well, it's just going to be Bama, at the time Clemson. Obviously, Clemson's fallen off now, but, it's going to be the same teams always, the Bamas, the Georgias, the Ohio States of the world. All three of those teams lost. I picked all three of those teams to win because I thought it was just going to be same old, same old. I'm very happy I was wrong in that sense. Um, but all four of these teams are chasing their or three of the four, excuse me. Obviously, Miami, like if you look at Indiana, never won a national title before. Oregon never won a national title. Ole Miss has a couple, but they're not AP national championships from like the 60s. Obviously, Miami back in the 80s was 80s, 90s was really good. They last won in 02, because then in 03, I believe they lost to Ohio State. I may have my years off by, one season there. But Miami hasn't been Miami for a long time. And you have three teams that are chasing, their first ever probably consensus national championships. That's really cool to see. The sport, like I was saying, kind of needed a breath of fresh air. When you have all these dynasties, it's cool. And really every sport, when you have two teams kind of come out of nowhere, in this case, you really have four teams. Because Corey, like you said, if you told me at the beginning of the season that any one of these teams was going to make it, I'd probably be like, okay, I can see Oregon getting there. Maybe even Miami, but Ole Miss I did not expect to be here, and Indiana I kind of thought was going to be more like SMU this year. SMU went 8-4, like they were still a good team, but not unbelievable. I kind of thought that was going to happen with Indiana. Their schedule got a little bit tougher, but instead they've dominated, and when you do that to Alabama in the Rose Bowl, like that was pretty impressive stuff there from Indiana. So I'm really looking forward to these two games.
Yeah, and you're kind of touching on it. The storylines are all there. Like the Miami kind of story of the U finally being back. That's a big thing. Michael Irvin has definitely made his presence felt, for all the crap we've talked on Carson Beck, and I think he's the highest paid quarterback in the sport this year. He's not exactly delivering like great moments and lighting the world on fire stat wise, but he's doing exactly what he needs to do with a defense that's that good and a running game that's been that strong. He's just taking care of the football and making timely plays on third down. So, hats off to him. Trinidad Chambliss has been one of the stories of the year in college football. I talked about that back in September, and here he is still playing into January. Plus all the side stuff with Lane Kiffin and the Ole Miss coaching staff. Plenty of stories there. Oregon, can they get that first national title? get Phil Knight a little parting gift before he inevitably passes away in one of these next few years. And then Indiana, do we need to say any more about them? That's maybe the story in all of sports right now. So plenty of storylines like you touched on. We'll dive into the Thursday night game first. Number 10 Miami coming off that win over Ohio State, and ass kicking in that one. They'll play number 6 Ole Miss, 7:30 kick on ESPN. Down in Arizona at the Fiesta Bowl, Hurricanes a 3-point favorite here, despite being the 10 seed to Ole Miss being the 6. Over under is 52.5. Joe, very impressive performance by both these teams, pulling upsets in the last round. Which one of these Cinderellas, I guess you could say for the time being, has the slipper fall off here?
I'm going to go with Ole Miss, I guess. I mean, I'm going Miami 35-31. I'll take Miami minus the 3. I'm going to go with the over. I really don't have a read on this game whatsoever. Like, Miami's defense has been really, really good. So I do think Miami's going to win, but Trinidad Chambliss, in my opinion, is objectively the better quarterback than Beck. I know Beck's been, doing it at the D1 level longer, but from what you've seen Chambliss do this season, especially in that playoff game against Georgia, I mean, he's the one guy. If I have a gun to my head, who do I trust out of these two? It's going to be Trinidad Chambliss. But the one thing, and I know I said this last week, and it proved that it didn't really matter because they ended up beating Georgia anyways, but all this stuff with Kiffin has to have some effect at some point. Like, I don't know. And especially now you were seeing that, there were rumors that he might be trying to block the coaches from, coaching in this game. And, a lot of it was all, rumor and stuff. But you have, like, just Miami right now is kind of like, with Cristobal kind of saying like a fuck you attitude. And they've been dominant. They got their chance. You see this a lot with teams that are kind of, on the bubble that get in, especially, it kind of reminds me of that first year of the playoff when Ohio State got in with Cardale Jones. And I'm not saying in terms of, the third string quarterback aspect of things, but they got in and they're making the most of their shot. And I think Miami's going to go to the national title. I think they're going to beat Ole Miss in a, close game. I have it high scoring, but I could also see this game being like, 21-20, like, a slugfest. But ultimately, I think Miami's going to get this one done. They're going to advance to the national title game. But I don't really have a read on this game because I thought both of these teams were going to lose. I thought we were destined for an Ohio State-Georgia semifinal. So honestly, because I think on the one hand, while Miami is very good, I didn't have them pegged even when they made the tournament as a semifinal team, getting through A&M on the road and then, beating Ohio State. And same goes for Ole Miss getting by Georgia. I mean, both really impressive wins. I'm going to go with Miami here, but this is honestly, a crapshoot for me. I really don't have a read on this game either way.
Yeah, I think this one, I think both you can maybe say is a coin flip. Like, Indiana's been so dominant. I would probably be more so to say this is the more so coin flip game, but I think it's kind of two contrasting styles right now. Like, Ole Miss is playing this high-flying, up-tempo type offense with Trinidad Chambliss obviously leading the way, and then Miami is throwing it back to 1970s football and relying on their lines of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. Their beef up front has been dominating. Just the physical nature that Miami team played with against Ohio State really impressed me. They were really hitting dudes in that one. They were making their presence felt on both sides of the ball, finishing their runs with their tailbacks, and then on the defensive side, whether it's sacking the quarterback or blowing dudes up in the secondary, this Miami team has really been hitting and has been really been physical. And it's definitely going to pop out on tape. But Pete Golding, I think, has a really good pulse on this team. And you touched on it, Joe. Like, you have to figure that the Lane Kiffin coaching departure and the assistants and everything involved has to make an impact at some point. But I'm going to go with Ole Miss in this one again, just because of what I said kind of at the beginning of the playoff. At the beginning, I said, if you're going to take a chance on one of these teams to make a run, I would take it on Ole Miss. Miami was kind of right there in the mix because of how good they are on the lines of scrimmage. But Ole Miss just has that little extra chip on their shoulder. That's something to play for. Still looking to prove Lane Kiffin wrong. Lane Kiffin taking the assistants now in the middle of this run. That just is something that kind of has to fuel the fire. Pete Golding, I'm sure, is kind of still harping on that. Like, your head coach quit on you. He gave up on you. He thought you couldn't win it all. He had to go to an in-conference rival. And here we are. We're one win away from going to the national title game. I think it's just kind of a storybook Cinderella type of season for this Ole Miss team. I think it's going to be a 30 for 30 potentially one day if they're able to win it all with everything that's gone on. I just think storyline wise, it's there, and it fits in with a potential Indiana storyline as well at the end of the day for two of maybe the craziest stories in the entire sport this year. So I'm with you, Joe. A pure coin flip game. I would definitely have to go with the Ole Miss plus the 3. You could convince me of either team winning on the money line, but I'm going to ride with my take from the beginning of the playoff that Ole Miss is going to make a run at this thing. So give me the Rebels 27-24, Ole Miss plus 3, and under 52.5 just hitting there. All right, we'll go to Friday night now, the Peach Bowl down in Atlanta, Georgia. Number 5, Oregon versus number 1, Indiana, 7:30 kick on ESPN. We already saw Indiana earlier this season go to Oregon, knock them off. Shocked a lot of people at the time. That was still in kind of that mode where how legit is Indiana? Are they actually going to be able to run this back next season? And Indiana has silenced the doubters the entire year. Goes on national TV and absolutely throttles Alabama last game. Oregon, after a pretty disappointing first-round matchup, I think they would say, with all the yards and points they gave up to James Madison, absolutely blanks Texas Tech. Their offense was never able to get going. This one should be interesting, Joe. Can Oregon pull off the upset here? 3-point dogs as Indiana is a 3-point favorite here. Over-under is 46.5.
I will say I am holding on to an Oregon National Champs ticket, plus 1110. I bet that when the bracket came out, I had a little boost on it as well because I thought that Alabama was going to knock off Indiana. That being said, they didn't. I think Indiana's going to win this game 21-17. I do think it's going to be low scoring. I do think it's going to be close within a touchdown. I'll take Indiana minus the 3 because I don't know. At this point, I just can't bet against SIG, even though I have thought that Indiana was down and out multiple times. I think even going back to like week 3 or 4 when they played Illinois, I was all over Illinois that game. They ended up winning like 67-10 or something like that. They smoked Illinois in that game. They've been dominant all season long. They won at Oregon earlier in the year. And the one thing, I know some people have talked about it, but I do think this is going to play a factor is Oregon last week played in the Orange Bowl. They flew all the way to Miami from Oregon. They flew all the way back home. They're flying all the way out again. I do think that's going to take a toll a little bit going back and forth back-to-back weeks, going all the way to the East Coast. And I think that Indiana is going to be able to, grind this game out. It's going to be low scoring. So I'm going to go Indiana 21, Oregon 17, and Dante Moore can prepare to have his life ruined by the Jets.
I'm right there with you, Joe, in terms of a lower scoring type of slugfest in this one. I love the over in that Texas Tech-Oregon game because both of those two teams have really been able to score all year, but that Oregon defense came to play. Texas Tech's defense came to play as well. Just Oregon's offense, I think, is a little bit more talented than Texas Tech, and that was kind of the main difference maker between two teams that had very strong defenses. But Indiana, you kind of just look at this team and the way that they're built. Discipline. They seem to do everything right. They don't have a lot of penalties. They don't fumble the ball. They don't turn over the football. They tackle soundly. They're always in the right formation. It doesn't seem like they're wasting timeouts on nonsense. It's just a super well-coached team by Kurt Cignetti, and they're just a machine right now. Like, simply, how do you pick against Indiana football? And it's crazy to say that. It reminds me of 2 years ago with Colorado. It was like, I was racing to my TV to watch Colorado football. You never said that before. Now you're saying, how do you beat Indiana football? And the only way I think you beat this Indiana team is if they beat themselves, because that's how good they are when they're all rolling together on kind of one cylinder. I mean, Fernando Mendoza, his resume this year goes to speak for himself, but I think the running game has been really impressive this year. The defense, especially the defensive line, getting after the quarterback. Ty Simpson was never really able to feel comfortable last week. It's just an Indiana team that's just a wagon right now, and it seems like they're not going to get stopped anytime soon. And Oregon, maybe they're the team to do it. I think out of all the teams left, I would probably say behind Indiana, I'd probably slot in Oregon as my next favorite to kind of win it all, or the team that is best suited to beat Indiana, especially having played them already this year. And Dan Lanning being a psycho coach that I think learns from his mistake. But Joe, I just can't do it right now. I can't pick against the Indiana Hoosiers. So with all that being said, I like this to be a very low scoring game with you. Two strong defenses, a lot of pass rushers in this game. What quarterback makes the big mistake? I think this one could come down to as well. Potentially your number 1 and number 2 pick here with Mendoza and Dante Moore. All eyes are going to be on those those guys, whoever wins this game, may even be the favorite for the number 1 overall pick at the end of the day if they go out there and carry their team to victory. So a lot on the line in this game. What quarterback makes a big mistake could be the potential swinging factor. But I'm going to go Indiana to win this one pretty comfortably. A late touchdown kind of backdoor cover. This game's never really in doubt. Indiana's pretty much in control the entire time. Oregon hangs around, but I'll go Indiana 24, Oregon 14, Indiana -3, under 46.5. Love that there. Well, Joe, hard to believe that was the Final Four broadcast. We have one more game next week to preview for the national title, but I think regardless, whatever outcome we get, if it's Miami, Indiana, if it's Ole Miss, Oregon, Ole Miss, Indiana, or Miami versus Oregon, I think we're going to have a really fun kind of final game and potential cool scene to get one of these teams to win a national title instead of an Ohio State, a Michigan, an Alabama, Georgia. Should be a really fun Final Four over these next few days. NFL playoffs, great football ahead this weekend. But as always, everyone, thank you for tuning in. Please like, please subscribe, and we'll talk next week.